In recent years, there has been a revival of classic platformers. In particular, many franchises have had modern remakes of some of their earlier games, bringing them forward into the new generation. For example, in the last decade, both Crash and Spyro re-emerged from the depths of 2000's platformer hell onto modern consoles. I don't know what happened to the rest of the Skylanders though. Hopefully they make a game with, the other... Wow, I can't even think of the name of a Skylander for the joke. The last main series Crash game before Crash 4 came out in 2008. Then there was basically nothing until 2017, or 2016, when Crash appeared in Skylanders. Anyway, my point is that the release of the Insane trilogy built a platform from which Crash could rise again to greater heights. So, what about Sonic? I think regardless of your thoughts on Forces, the movie, or Puyo Puyo, Sonic's in a rough place at the moment. We've had no news on a main series game since Forces came out. I respect the fact that a lot of people like Forces, and I agree that it has some good aspects, like character customization and, I guess it frees up space when you uninstall it. But I think most of us can agree that the quality we've been getting recently isn't the sort of quality we're hoping for in the future, at least not in regards to 3D games. Mania was incredibly well received, and for good reason, but 3D Sonic feels neglected. I mean, Forces wasn't even a 3D game really. You play the 2D sections and just sit back and watch the 3D ones. I think many feel the boost gameplay has become stagnant, and Sonic needs some sort of redesign, but like a gameplay redesign rather than, Increasingly, many seem to be calling for a return to the adventure-style gameplay, and possibly, given the success of Insane Trilogy and the like, a remake of some of the early 3D games, which updates the graphics and makes the controls tighter and whatnot. The hope is, I guess, that Sega will regain their footing and find a new formula for Sonic, which might work for the next 10 years or so. It may also be an opportunity to capture new fans, because I can't think of any games recently that would be a good introductory point to the franchise. Additionally, it was supposedly leaked recently that Sega is in fact developing a remake of the original adventure. In light of this, I'm wondering whether this is in fact a good idea. Does Adventure really need a remake? And should Sega be focused on making one? It sounds good on paper. Sega will remake the adventure we all know and love, this time in HD with shiny new models, but hopefully not actually shiny ones like the ones in DX. They'll somehow learn how to make the adventure-style gameplay work, and then progress on to make more adventure-style games. But I don't know if you guys know this. I mean, it's a little hard to spot while playing, I'll admit, but Sonic Adventure isn't a particularly good game. Well, I take that back, it's really good and I love it, but it has some problems. If it was released today, even with better graphics, voice acting, and controls, I'm not sure how people would respond. It's not just that certain parts of it are outdated, the game itself is just fundamentally flawed. If Sega are to remake it, they'll be remaking an imperfect game. While that's fine for people who love the game just as it is, it won't exactly appeal to a new audience if, for example, fishing. Though the Crash Insane trilogy was critically successful, I had this exact problem while playing it. I'd never played the original Crash games, but started playing the Crash 1 remake and I just can't do it. I've made it most of the way through, but in order to preserve the core of the original game, the awful depth perception has returned. They could have been merciful enough to offer infinite lives, then maybe I'd have enjoyed it. But you see my point. A remake of Sonic Adventure will retain lots of contentious elements, such as Big the Cat and the honestly dreadful boss fights. The only improvements I could see being made over the original would be the graphics, controls, and the god-awful camera. Although Sega will probably respond to the camera issue by removing camera controls altogether and then automating the game up the arse. But I really hope they don't. Alright, so say case A is that Sega do a total redesign of the game, preserving only the good stuff and getting rid of the bad. We'd get rid of Big for a start, which I think will please everyone, unanimously, but what about Amy? I don't think she was so bad, but I wouldn't exactly miss her. The more stories you remove though, the shorter the game. Maybe Sega should add more levels? I always thought Sonic's levels would make more sense as 2 acts. You know, like in the case of Speed Highway, Act 1 would be on the highway at night, and Act 2 would be in the town at dawn. This would be great if pulled off, but Sonic Team haven't really outdone themselves recently in regards to level design. When I think about it, it's hard to pinpoint what should really be changed. I assume the cutscenes will be redone, which you could say will be a good thing, but I don't know. I just really love the cutscenes. They have a certain charm, which cannot be replicated by the newer voice actors. I mean, Tails, come on, he sounds so innocent and adorable. If they get his current voice actor to redo his lines, he'll just sound like an obnoxious, nerdy twat. I can't be alone in thinking that the adventure cutscenes are cringy in just the right way. I mean, there's this scene where Eggman gets absolutely roasted, and it just hits a spot in me that Baldy Nose Hair just doesn't. It seems that Sega might be getting in a new batch of voice actors and writers before the next game. Maybe they'll bring back some of the old voice actors? Probably not, but at least the lines should be better. I mean, they can't be any worse, can they? Then there's the boss fights. I'm aware that they are offensively terrible, but I just can't imagine the Knuckles boss fight any other way. And in regards to Big, he is the most iconically bad aspect of the game. I mean, his whole essence is just stupid. But for this exact reason, he's part of what makes Sonic Adventure Sonic Adventure. Think about it. You can't spell Sonic without at least one letter from Big's name. So, case B, which is more likely, is that Sega just does a faithful recreation with better graphics and controls, but few other changes. The closer it is to a port though, the less well it will likely be received by non-Sonic fans. Unfortunately, Sonic Adventure isn't considered a timeless classic, like for example Mario 64 might be. Or might have been until 3D All-Stars came out and people realised that Mario 64 was equally as jank as every other early 3D platformer. Speaking of 3D All-Stars, people weren't so impressed with that, I guess because it was just a port, so it looks like Sega are going to have to put in some effort somewhere to create a new experience. I'm trying to think of examples where this has been pulled off effectively. I guess DX was sort of a remake or upgrade of the original adventure, except literally every change was for the worst. Maybe the Christian Whitehead remakes of the classic games, though those games were probably easier to remake. Just make them widescreen and add save states, done. On the topic of the Christian Whitehead games, I think the process here could ideally be replicated for the 3D games, as in Christian Whitehead was able to perfect the classic Sonic formula through making his remakes, and was able to then make Sonic Mania, which is the best classic Sonic game. Don't argue with me, it just is. So maybe Sega could remake Adventure 1, 2, maybe Heroes or 06, I don't know, and then make some other adventure-style game. But then we go back to the same issue of how you exactly remake Adventure. The classic remakes are genuinely the definitive ways of playing the respective games. They're exactly one-to-one remakes, but with widescreen, better physics, and other necessary additions. Nobody can really argue that there is any merit to playing the originals. It will take a lot more effort, however, to fix the jank in Adventure, and any graphical upgrades risk detracting from the essence of the original game. Furthermore, given the scale of Sonic Adventure and the fact that it will be a full-price game, people who have never played the original might not even like it. At least not past Sonic's story. People will expect a genuinely good platformer, as I did when playing the Crash 1 remake. With the Sonic 1 remake, on the other hand, nobody's expecting anything other than, well, Sonic 1. Either you're a huge fan of Sonic 1 and enjoy every minute of it, or you get past Green Hill, realise the game is kind of underwhelming, and go and play Monopoly or literally any other game instead. I think that the better move would be to skip the adventure remakes entirely and go straight to something like Mania. Remaking any 3D game is a demanding task, and if Sonic Team are expecting to put out an original game like Sonic Rift or whatever at the same time, then they'll likely end up rushing like they usually do. And regardless of how much effort they put in, the finished product will still suffer all the flaws inherent to Sonic Adventure. Instead, they can solve the issue of what should be preserved from the adventure games by just making an entirely new game, which takes the best aspects from all the games of that era, like Mania did with the classics. And you could even reuse old level themes. It would be like a remake of the entire adventure era, but condensed into a single game. The ultimate adventure game, like Mania was the ultimate classic game. If it is marketed as such, then there probably won't even be the same backlash for reusing old levels as there was in Mania. And even if there is, who honestly cares? Mania was the most well-received Sonic game in like 10 years or something. The fans' expectations of Sonic Team are so low that if they put out anything of quality, then people will be satisfied. If Sega does go down this route, there's still the possibility that they get things horribly wrong. As in, they completely butcher the Adventure Sonic gameplay, and future titles become oversaturated with adventure themes and mechanics because Sonic Team can't can't pull off anything original anymore. We don't want Adventure Sonic getting the same treatment as Classic Sonic, as in the Classic Sonic in the 3D games. I don't think this will be the case. I think it is more likely that we get a number of adventure-style games without either Adventure Sonic being shoehorned into boost games, or there being an adventure modern distinction between two different Sonics. This is also one reason why I don't want the adventure games getting the Mania treatment exactly. Rather than a game just targeting nostalgia for the adventure games and using only adventure themes and mechanics, it'd be nice for Sega to take inspiration from more recent games as well. For example, Hub Worlds more along the lines of Unleashed than Adventure or 06, and even incorporating the character customization from Forces into the Chow Garden. So to summarise, I don't think an adventure remake per se is really in our interests, considering there isn't a whole lot that can be fixed whilst still maintaining the core of the game. Of course, I'm sure you all have ideas of what could potentially be put in such a remake, as do I. They could potentially make a really good remake, but doing so would be a lot of effort and, let's be honest, they'd more likely do the bare minimum. I'd rather the effort was put into making something semi-original along the lines of Mania. Sonic Team wouldn't have to come up with loads of new ideas or reinvent the formula yet again, but they'd still be able to pass it off as a new game. But what do you all think? Would you rather a new game like this, a remake, or do you not want an adventure-style game at all? I'm interested to hear your opinions on this. Thanks for watching.